Hi, and hello, my name is Noah, and this is my top 10 list of the 2024 films. Of the movies that came out and I saw in 2024, these I think are the best. So although this is tiered, I still believe each one of these films is absolutely worth checking out if you are interested. As a reminder, of course, this is just a subjective list. This is not carved into stone, or it isn't law. If you have a different list, that's totally fine. I'd love to see any of your different lists down in the comments below. I'd be happy to see and share the love of films. Without further ado, let's get started. At number 10, we have The Substance. Going into this movie, I did not know what to expect, and what a roller coaster this was. From the brilliant performances from Demi Moore and Margaret Qualley, both as the main character, they're both exemplary. The premise alone, I would love on itself. Something straight out of a Black Mirror episode. A drug that can create a younger clone of yourself by emerging out of your back is such a visceral concept. Add in themes of the female gaze, the sexualization of women in the entertainment industry and in general society, the self-scrutinization women are pushed into through the insane and honestly inhumane beauty standards placed upon them, no matter how old women get. Add in the tense and very visceral visuals at times, the great body horror that is up there with Cronenberg's The Fly. This makes it one of the most memorable thriller horror movies that I experienced in theaters. I walked out of the movie theater in a daze just because of how effective this movie was. And this is absolutely worth checking out if you don't eat dinner beforehand. Do not eat a heavy meal before this movie. Alright, at number 9, we have The Shadow Strays. This is one of the best action movies that is easily on par with last year's John Wick Chapter 4. In terms of top-tier stunt work and choreography, the stakes and the tension are easily on par with the first John Wick film as well. This is the movie I wish I had gotten out of the Black Widow movie that came out in 2020. This movie is what the Black Widow movie should have been. Aurora Ribeiro as Agent 13 is an absolute action star. She carries this movie on both acting and through the stunt work. In many ways, this movie is just as bloody and gruesome that rivals Kill Bill and Django Unchained. This movie is absolutely worth checking out if you're an action movie fan and you love Quentin Tarantino's sensibilities in terms of action. This movie absolutely delivers on every level of an action movie. This is a hidden gem on Netflix. Check it out if you're interested. At number 8, probably my favorite surprise of 2024, Hundreds of Beavers. Shout out to Capital 6 Theaters for putting this movie on my radar. As soon as I saw the previews for this movie, I knew I needed to see it. I saw it in theaters and it was with a buddy of mine, and it was my favorite viewing experiences of the year. A guy lost in a Michigan forest during the winter has to survive, learning to hunt, trap, and learn the ways to live while fighting off wolves, raccoons, woodpeckers, and yes, hundreds of beavers. The slapstick, indie style this movie strives for works on so many different levels. It's Charlie Chaplin, it's Buster Keaton, physical comedy, but out in the woods, and all the animals are people playing dress up. The humor, the jokes, the gags get funnier and funnier as the movie progresses, because the movie just keeps on building on all the jokes that they established in the beginning of the movie, leading to even more hilarious antics that are just built upon the antics that they had established. It gets to the point of even using video game logic and mechanics at some point. It does sound stupid and crazy, but trust me, the movie makes it work. You get what you want from this movie and more. It might seem strange to some, but trust me on this, you will not regret watching an incredibly well done comedy. You can find this on Hoopla, Prime, renting, or buying it online. At number 7, we have Sing Sing. Shout out to my parents for putting this movie on my list. This is a poignant, emotionally fulfilling movie about finding joy in an often joyless place. Finding fellowship in the arts and finding oneself by lifting others up in turn. Coleman Domingo delivers a stellar performance worthy of recognition. I hope he gets more recognition later on in the awards season to come. Divine Eye is a standout as himself. He plays as himself, along with many of the other inmates who perform as themselves in the Sing Sing's theater program, the RTA. If you are an arts-minded, theater-loving individual, You will love this movie. This movie, to me, is up there with Green Mile and Shawshank of being excellent movies that just so happen to be taking place in a prison. You find this movie on Plex. This is absolutely worth checking out. It's an underrated, it's a hidden gem of a movie, absolutely worth checking out. Alright, at number 6, we have Challengers. This is, in my belief, the 2024's version of Whiplash. It is a tense drama with an actual love triangle. And yes, there's enough tension between the two male leads to suggest this. Zendaya puts on a performance that steals and centers the movie squarely on her shoulders. Very appropriate considering how her character manipulates the other two tennis playing characters. Mike Faist and Josh O'Connor are absolutely killer as their characters, and they round out the trio that are constantly going back and forth from being enemies to lovers, friends to competitors as well. The tennis playing on display is also a great work of cinematography. Editing added with the music, which I was very, very glad to see it won for Best Music at the Golden Globes. They're all top notch, and it all helps build such tension to the point where I was on the edge of my seat for the final tennis round by the end of the movie. That says something considering that there was a great amount of sequences, and this movie was the one that made me feel the most tense by the end of the movie. If you're in the mood for some excellent mind portrayal of mind games, interchanging yet effective uses of flashbacks to provide context at just the right times, this movie is an editing masterpiece as well as an acting masterpiece from all three of the aforementioned actors. Highly worth checking out if you're a tennis fan or just a Zendaya fan or a fan of a good movie in general. You can see this movie by renting it or buying it digitally. At number 5, we move on to Wicked. I am very predisposed to like this movie going into it. I've seen the production of it a few times growing up. I am a big Broadway fan to begin with. On top of that, I actually quite enjoyed John M. Chu's In the Heights and was quite excited to see what he could do with Wicked as a musical. And boy, was it fantastic. Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo are fantastic in their roles. The score by Stephen Schwartz and John Powell is a great adaptation of the musical. The choreography is so good and is so on point. The singing is amazing. The costumes and the set designing is outstanding. The only things I would critique is Jeff Goldblum's and Michelle Yeoh's performances, as they felt a bit flat for me, as well as some minor pacing issues towards the midpoints of the movie before they get to the City of Oz. Other than that, this movie had me dancing on my feet afterwards. Even if you're not a fan of musicals, I think this might be the one that could work for you. I highly recommend this to give it a chance if you're not a musical fan. Of course, if you're a musical fan or Wicked, you probably have already watched it. This one is worth it just for the penultimate defying gravity number at the very end. It shakes the theater, brings the whole theater down at the very end. Catch this in theaters right now, or you can catch it through renting or buying it now. It's just released recently. At number 4, we have It's What's Inside. Shout out to Amanda the Jedi for putting this movie on my radar. This movie, it is this year's Knives Out. When a group of friends reunite for a party before one of them gets married, an estranged friend appears and suggests they play a game where they switch bodies and have to guess who's in whose body. This premise alone had me hooked, but on top of that, so much of this movie fires on all cylinders. The main ensemble of actors are asked to not only act as the primary characters, but as others as well, and each of their performances are distinct from one another. The script is so airtight to the point of excellence, with all the twists and turns as it weaves and bobs, and keeps you on your toes as a viewer. And the intrigue it builds up through the editing is also top tier. It's another hidden gem to find and appreciate to watch on Netflix. A high recommendation for me. At number 3, we have Inside Out 2. I watched the first one back in high school and one of my favorite Pixar films to this day. After a rough patch of instability for the animation studio, I am quite happy to see this movie has performed for the studio and cannot be more thrilled of how deserving the success this movie has had. The new elements that they added to Riley's mind not only work, but also make it more relatable. The new emotions they introduce, while not all of them are given enough time to be fleshed out, there are wonderful additions to the main cast of emotions already established from the previous ones. Anxiety in particular is the heart and center of this movie. It is a great portrayal of how anxiety is a force of nature that sometimes seems to be antagonistic, but is still out for the best interests of Riley at the end of the day. It's one of the best portrayals of anxiety, of growing up, and displays of friendship I've seen this year. Easily on par with Pixar's best sequels akin to Toy Story 2. If you haven't watched this movie already, you can find this movie on Disney+. There's not much else to say about this movie. It is fantastic. Check it out. And at number 2, we have The Wild Robot. I gotta be honest, I hoped this movie was going to be good, but I had no idea how good it would be, or even how great it would be. Inside Out 2 made me cry, but this movie made me bawl at multiple times. Lupita Nyong'o puts in an amazing vocal performance as the main robot, about a robot who is stuck on a remote island, learning how to not only coexist with the animal residents, but also how to become a mother. While this is a great movie to watch with kids, I feel this movie will resonate a lot with parents and older people who will see things more from the robot's side of the story and other parental figures in the movie. The animation is absolutely stunning, easily the best of this year, of the 2024. The animation added with an amazing score, soaring visuals. This movie is absolutely deserving of any list of 2024. Check it out in limited theaters, rent it, or buy it digitally. This movie is absolutely worth checking out. My Old Ass, directed by Megan Park. Kneecap, directed by Rich Papiet. Saturday Night, directed by Jason Reitman. A Real Pain, directed and written by Jesse Eisenberg. Furiosa, a Mad Max saga, directed by George Miller. Love Lies Bleeding, directed by Rose Glass. And last but not least, The Remarkable Life of Evelyn, a documentary directed by Benjamin Ree. I hope you give these films a chance if you have the time. Alright, and finally, even after now 11 months since it came out, it still remains as my top movie of 2024. My number one movie of 2024 is Dune 2. Going into this movie, I had high expectations being a fan of the books, and by Lisa Al-Gaib, this movie did not disappoint in the slightest. Every part of this movie was amazing to behold. The acting, the visual effects, the score, the cinematography, the script, everything about this movie was just excellent to watch. Denis Villeneuve and his crew outdid themselves. This movie is The Empire Strikes Back as much as Beyond the Spider-Verse is. It is the two towers to the Fellowship, and I cannot wait to see in 2026 how the third one will wrap things up. Timothée Chalamet in particular impressed me, along with Austin Butler in particular. Their showcases of acting blew me away. The political machinations at play, the whole scope and breadth on display of how expansive this world is portrayed, the Bene Gesserit scheming, the list goes on. In terms of the religious discussions, as well as the commentary on how religion is used to manipulate masses. The list goes on and on. If you have not watched the most recent Dune movies by Denis Villeneuve, do yourself a favor and check those two movies out. And I hope you enjoy it as much as I do, because they're just, in my opinion, that good. And those are my top 10 movies. To recap, at number 10, we have The Substance. At number 9, we have Shadow Strays. Number 8, Hundreds of Beavers. Number 7, Sing Sing. Number 6, Challengers. Number 5, Wicked. Number 4 is What's Inside. Number 3, Inside Out 2. Number 2, Wild Robot. And at number 1, Dune 2. If you check out any of these movies, I hope you enjoy them. And until next time, I hope you keep on enjoying movies.